Go. Welcome to Days of the Dead Atlanta. So happy to have you both here.
Thank you. Is this working? It is. Okay.
So I would love, well, okay, I'll go and get you some water. I would love to begin this by asking you both about your acting journey and how did you get involved in this craft?
Well, I think I was an editor for a poetry magazine and a small press, and I met somebody who was an actress, and I thought that would be interesting to explore. So I started taking acting lessons, and in one of my acting classes, a woman named a friend of mine who was an actress, Sarah Venerable, who was in Martin. She was the suburban housewife, if you've ever seen Martin, yeah. She said, oh my gosh, they're casting for blonde actors, so I decided I didn't know who George was, and I didn't know anything about Night of the Living Dead. I knew nothing, but I went to the audition, and I auditioned, and he cast me. Well, he called me back, and then he cast me, but that was, I scared him in the audition, that's right. I did a monologue that I changed a little bit, so it sounded like I had just walked away from somebody who was actually hit by a car or something as they were crossing the street. And at the end of the monologue, George said, oh, I'm so sorry for your friend. I said, no, I was acting. That was, he goes, oh, so I scared him.
Well, let's see. I'm from New York City originally, and I had trained at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I trained at the Stanislavski Theater. I was like a really serious person, you know. I'm making fun of myself. It's okay, right?
Yes.
And George came to New York with Christine Forrest, who was then his girlfriend, and who ultimately they got married. But Christine and I went to college together. We didn't know each other until we met in college, and we were both in the theater department. And so she suggested me to George, and they came to New York. They sent me the script, and I went, oh my God, this is the most bloody, disgusting thing I've ever read in my entire life. Because you don't get the humor when you read the script. And once you get to the set, then you start to get the humor. Remember the basement scene early on when they're all eating each other? So we were called to the set, Kenny and I, and went into the set there, and there were all these extras who were zombies and eating each other. It was just disgusting. Really, I mean, up front it was disgusting. And George was there, and I said, George, this is like really gross. And he looked at me with a big smile and went, yeah, I know. It was pure.
So you were also involved in another beloved horror film, Mad Men.
Mad Men was, unique. Have you all seen Mad Men? Yeah. Well, it was the funniest part of it was that they were supposed to film it in summer because it was a summer camp in the woods and this tale of, the monster in the woods that comes out. But they didn't get their funding in the summer, so they had to wait till October to film it. So we were supposed to pretend that we were in summer camp as the weather was freezing. And so we were filming at night, and we were wearing more and more long underwear underneath everything. And the leaves were falling off the trees, so the set designer had to go around pasting leaves. I remember painting them, spray painting them orange and red. And I do remember one time there was like this weekend, and there was some clairvoyant or medium or something, and people were going to see this in the town. It was like a little festival or something, and so the set designer was told that her future was that she would be a forest ranger.
Oh God!
But it was pretty funny. So we were out there in the cold with our long underwear and pretending we were at a campfire in the summer.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
And about Creepshow. Can you talk about your
Oh, I
experiences
love Creepshow.
filming that?
Creepshow was,
Me too.
Creepshow was wet. Creepshow was wet. So my memories of Creepshow, besides being wet, we were on that New Jersey shore beach, and I remember we actually had, George created with his crew, Nick Mastandria, a wave machine. So not only, the waves weren't big enough for George, so he wanted a wave machine. So they created this machine, so I would be sitting in this hole that they had dug that was fortified with a stool and a wetsuit, and then the sand was pretended to be around me. And then the wave machine would just bring these waves on, and I said, so George said, we better have a word in case you're really drowning, So I said, yeah, I can't remember what the word was, but we had some safe word. We had a safe word in case I was, and I remember George sitting off to the side, cross-legged in his parka, very dry, and I'm thinking it's a lot better on that side of the camera than here, but we had a great time, and of course the best part of it was Leslie Nielsen. Of course, he was like, he was so funny. He would have this fart machine,
Yep.
Yeah. So everywhere he went, to dinner, to any place, but if he went on a talk show, he would also take it on to the talk show. He thought it was just great, But Ted Danson and I would have to go up to the shot was we were covered with this seaweed and dreck that Savini had put on us. We really smelled, we were like we were in the makeup room for like 2 hours before a shot, and we had to be dressed with all this seaweed, and we would be watching Forbidden Planet on the television to see Leslie when he was young. And then we would go up, and the thing was we were supposed to scare Leslie, if you could hold your breath, but every time Leslie would open the door, he would say something stupid, or the fart machine. So we ended up actually making more money there was a show called Dick Clark, The Bloopers. So there were all these outtakes that they paid for, because we could never do it without laughing with Leslie Nielsen. He was so great.
Now, Scott, you returned to the Dawn of the Dead franchise family after how many years of being off screen? What was it, Falcon's Crest, was it?
Did some TV, Falcon Crest days.
Yeah. So, but there was that big gap. What was it like returning to the family?
Oh, it was great. I wasn't acting anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was directing, particularly theater. No, it was great. You're talking about the remake of Zack Snyder. Yeah, no, it was a great experience because I didn't know what to expect, but you know what the best part about it was that Zack Snyder and Eric Newman, who produced it, they were very concerned, and I mean this truthfully because they said this to me directly, they did not want to insult George, right? So they were very concerned about that, and fortunately they didn't, try to emulate or imitate his humor, because that would be a huge mistake, because, that's Romero's brain. So it was a great experience. They were really nice people.
You said you were directing.
Oh yeah, I was directing a lot of things.
What location?
In New York and off Broadway, also off Broadway and regional theater.
How did you get involved in that? Was that always a passion of yours, directing in theater?
Well, it became a passion because I felt that, it uses more of your imagination and uses different skills, and also you're kind of in charge, and so you have more kind of grip in terms of, being not control, but being in charge and planning and who you're going to hire, right? And who's going to be the team and all of that, and it's pretty exciting on opening night. It's like nothing like it. I love movies, but it's just nothing like it. It's live.
Do you have a favorite theater project that you directed?
Yeah.
What is it?
2, 3.
I know it's so hard to pick, right? It's like picking your favorite child.
Yeah. Well, I have a favorite child.
Who are they?
She's 45. She lives in California. Child, Zoe, my child. I just lost track of where you were.
Favorite project you directed, or the top three rather.
One is the Kentucky Cycle. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a 6-hour play that happens over 2 nights. And I was the original director in terms of developing that. We're in workshop, and then we finally produced it. And I didn't go all the way with it. It was an amazing experience. It was just I can't even, I'd have to talk to you for 4 hours about it. The other one was a play I developed called Italian Funerals and Other Festive Occasions, which was a comic drama about death. A true story. And I developed it, and it had a very cinematic feel because it traveled time through the Alzheimer's of his mother. Anyway, and that was like really successful. Very moving.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do we have any audience questions right now?
The hands were there.
When I met George Romero, I asked him what he thought about all the newfound fame of zombies, The Walking Dead, and you kind of see him in a lot of movies and everything now. What were your kind of thoughts when you saw the popularity of Walking Dead and all the newfound zombie movies?
The new zombie films.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I mean, Greg Nicotero came out of George's stable, so to speak. So he was trained right at the hand of George. And so Walking Dead came out of that. I know that George particularly loved Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
He loved Shaun of the Dead. And, you know, he liked the humor, he liked the slowness of it. It was really an homage to George.
Yes.
That was very clear. I think if George had lived, the one director that he would have loved would have been Jordan Peele and Get Out and all of his films. I mean, they were two things, especially Get Out, you know. It was humorous and it was also political and it was a statement. It was all those things that George liked in making his films, and I know that would have been one of his favorites for sure.
All the original zombie movies that George did, and then the popularity of zombies taking off, and George told me he hated some of that.
Yeah,
and I
right.
was just wondering what
He's known to say that.
what your thoughts were about the newfound fame of zombies.
Well, basically is that it wouldn't have happened except because of Romero.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. You know, when Walking Dead came out, Nicotero was working on it, obviously, but it was like, it's not like just went, wow, this is on mainstream television. Gee, how did that happen? You know, wouldn't have happened without Romero. Sorry. And Romero was a very decent person. You would never, if you met him and didn't know what he did, you would never know that he just was a horror fiend, you know. You just would never know that. He was very gentle, warm, kind.
That's the exact experience I had meeting him a few times.
Yeah, it's funny how, you know, the trends happen. You know, now zombies are like, not that zombies are fading, but now vampires are rising again. So it's interesting. It's like one comes up and the other, you know.
Yep.
So now we're getting, what, Nosferatu for Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Oh, ho, ho! Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of Dawn, when you and Peter are up on the roof, and your character and Peter up on the roof, and you were taking off, two-part question. Where as your character, where do you think you wound up, and personally, where you would have liked to have wound up?
Where I think, as the character, where I ended up.
Right, meaning like as and if you're in your character where you thought you were going, and then as personally where you would have wanted to wind up.
Well, the first was up, and then it was it was a crapshoot from there. If I was driving, as I said earlier, I said that would have been 50-50, Ken with the gun shooting himself in the head, or me driving the helicopter. I think the odds were equal, But where would we have wanted to go? I don't know. Aruba. Someplace warm, yeah? I have no idea. I thought it was interesting, with George, he was not one of those directors that would continue with sequels with the same actors. So the storyline would continue in some way, evolving, but he didn't bring back actors to where they are now, kind of thing. So Day of the Dead is quite different than Dawn for all those reasons as well. The future is, he lays out the future, but the characters we just don't know.
Well, I know where I ended up. I was buried under a pile of dirt in a garden in the mall.
Well, Stephen King said it best, sometimes they come back.
Oh. You mean, do I want to come back, or do I want to come back? Well, I said I tried not to come back, but I was wrong. Roger had these fantasies of things and found out that what he was thinking was incorrect. Right, and he couldn't control everything, as he honored himself that he had that ability. That's why he started to lose his mind. There's a whole backstory to that, but so I don't know if I answered your question.
You answered part of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it. Okay.
Had you survived, had your character survived,
Oh.
would you have wanted to live out your days in the mall until everything was gone, or where would you have wanted to wind up at given that situation?
As Roger. As Roger.
Yeah. Correct.
That's a good question. No one's ever asked me that. Where do I want to end up? I never thought about that. Because I died. But where would I want to end up as Roger? Ideally, well, Roger, he had a lot of control issues, which is why, he did. He was a SWAT cop, trained that he could handle any situation at any particular moment. And he prided himself on that. And he lost his mind because things got out of control and he didn't know what to do, right? So then he started to make stupid mistakes. Where would I want to end up? Well, as Roger, not as Scott, okay? Probably, because he thrived on danger. He thrived on pushing the envelope, right? That's where he felt alive. That was his problem. I don't know if that's too esoteric, but whatever. I don't think I'm answering your question.
Anyone else out there? Yeah.
Have you ever gone back to visit the mall where this was shot?
Yeah, we go back for the weekends. We've done several of those.
Yeah.
Weekend. What do they call it?
Living Dead Weekend.
Living Dead Weekend. Thank you.
That's great.
We've done several of them.
Yeah.
It's very different now. of
Right.
course.
But I just randomly wound up in that town and found out that that's where, and I went to that mall and I found there's a plaque.
Yes, there's a plaque for George. It's funny because originally the mall didn't want to have anything to do with
Right.
Dawn, and they didn't, that legacy, they wanted to forget it ever happened, right? And then the business of a mall started to decline, and suddenly the light bulb came on and go, let's, exploit the Romero film here. So suddenly there was like a plaque, and then they...
There's a bust of him. There, yeah.
A bus.
A bus? Yes, the bus. And people do tours in the mall, so they're
Yeah.
very happy about that now. Yeah, it keeps business going.
Right.
For how long, I don't know. I don't know how long that mall's gonna be
Right.
there.
Yeah.
I just want to ask for both of you guys, kind of overall, how much input, how much, I don't know, how many conversations you may have had with George about the story arc of your characters throughout Dawn of the Dead, because Scott as Roger, you know, you kind of slowly lose your mind, you can kind of see that throughout the film, the little moments here and there. And specifically with Gaylen, your character and the way that you interact with David as, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, it's not a lovey-dovey relationship, really. It's more of a, I'm knocked up with your kids, so I gotta be with you, unfortunately, type of situation.
Or not even with you.
How much of that was from George, and how much of that was from you guys' interpretations of the characters?
You can go.
Your first question is, do we talk to George a lot about that?
Yeah.
I talked to him somewhat about it. The thing about George, he gives you a lot of freedom as an actor to think on your own, right? So that's really where the whole thing starts. He doesn't get into the little tiny details of your performance. He just doesn't. And he just kind of sets you free to do what you want to do, you know, and he just trusted that I would come up with the right so-called result, if you want, okay? I took the role because of the arc it had. That was your question, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why I took the role, because the movie disturbed me to read the script, but I thought it was a great role, you know? Yeah, he and I talked about that, but we didn't have like intense, in-depth conversations. He just understood that I understood it. Yeah, so.
Well, George and I had a few conversations, mostly about starting off, you know, I wanted to be sure that the woman character was not going to scream and cry through the whole film. So that was one of my first lines that I did with George, is that if that was okay, then, you know, I would go ahead. And this was, you know, it was early on. This was, I think, Aliens had just was done right after, and then Terminator. So women at that time, you know, were always the victims. And certainly, as much as I liked Night of the Living Dead, the women were, you know, pretty paralyzed. So I said, that can't happen with her. So one of the things that George did with me was make her stronger. And at a certain point, I said, she's not strong enough. And that's when George went and rewrote the scene where I say, which was my favorite scene, I would have made you all breakfast, but I don't have my pots and pans, and the guys all roll their eyes, and they had their eye rolls for like...
I'm not really like that.
Yeah, legendary. And then I said, I want to fly the helicopter, and I want to learn how to shoot the gun. But that had to be written in, because it was becoming clearer that she was not as strong as the other three. And my favorite thing, though, was that I went to a screening, just quietly. I was sitting in the balcony when they were doing a screening in New York at the Dawn of the Dead. It was just a regular movie time. And I was sitting there, and people get pretty vocal, you know, when they were watching the film. And there was like, you know, during this whole period of like, you know, when the guys are talking about her, and she's pregnant, and she's smoking, which is another thing. You know, the people in the audience were going, leave the bitch, just leave her, dump her. And I remember going, wait, it gets better. And these people turned around and they looked at me and they looked at the screen, and I think that was the scariest moment for them. But I mean, I think that's what happened, you know. As far as the relationship, I mean, he didn't talk about that at all. I mean, that just was in the script. It just was, you know, it was what it was. I thought it was very funny that David, who was actually cast in a role where he's the weakest of the three guys, was the only military guy in the whole film who knew actually how to shoot a gun.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I was not in the military. I was classified 4F because I had a physical problem that I could not be drafted.
And Ken wasn't.
And Ken wasn't, and then David and I would joke about this, because I was the sharpshooter, but he actually could be a sharpshooter. So that was kind of fun, I did get trained by a cop, though. That was pretty intense.
So, this question's for Gaylen. So, David and Scott got to play two of the greatest zombies of all time. Do you kind of wish you had gotten a chance to put on the zombie makeup?
No. The closest I came was that, originally I was supposed to die in the film. So it was supposed to put Peter was going to shoot himself in the head, and then I was going to stick my head in the helicopter blade. So my very first encounter was I flew to Pittsburgh, and Savini made a head cast for me. And it was one of his first head molds that he did, and he got me stuck in it. Oh. So it was like an hour to get me out. So I thought, that's it, that's enough, So the makeup, but people loved it, the zombies in the mall, they would put their makeup on, and they were like, I think they were getting $1 a day or something to be a zombie. And they would wear the makeup all day long, and after they leave, they would keep the makeup on, and they would go to work with the makeup. They loved it. And the one day I was in the mall, we would work at night, and then at 6 o'clock in the morning the music would come on, and then we'd know that the day was over. So in Pittsburgh, where it was icy and snowy, that people, they exercised, they would come to the mall and they would walk. So one day I'm seeing a whole group of walkers, and I looked at them, and they were walking, and I go, no, we're wrapped. We're done with the filming. I had no idea that they weren't zombies. But that's how brilliant George was that he, there was for him no difference. The human beings and the zombies, once they were in a shopping mall and they were consumers, were the same.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I still think about that whenever I'm in a mall. It just sticks with me, because then I just watch people wandering around, but that's because of the Dawn of the Dead story. But that just still sticks with me. But some people do wander around as if they are they're lost.
Yeah.
And they're mesmerized by all this stuff.
Absolutely.
This is a question for Scott. Being on both Dawn of the Dead movies, I think I heard that George did not particularly care for fast zombies because they thought it was rotting flesh and they shouldn't be moving fast. So I was wondering, after you worked on the new Dawn of the Dead, if you ever talked to George about his thoughts on converting them to fast zombies.
Fast zombie? Oh, no, he didn't like them.
Yeah.
He thought they were ridiculous. He didn't speak with him about anger or anything. Objectives, it's ridiculous. Yeah. He had nothing to say about Zack Snyder or
Right.
producer. No, he was not critical that way. It was just about the story and the way they did it. But I didn't mind the movie at all. I thought it was, it was well produced, well directed, action film.
Did you ever get to work with James Gunn, the writer, on it?
Did I work with him?
Yeah, did you ever get to
No.
talk to him about the characters? And
No.
I ought to add that, for George too, the zombies they were characters, he saw them as characters, not just as flashes. And I think that's what, people have their favorite zombies and Dawn of the Dead, and you laugh and you make fun of them, and it carried it over into Day of the Dead as well. So I think that was another piece of it.
What are y'all's thoughts on the zombies gaining their intelligence and, being the next evolution of something, or just
Good
a
question.
zombie?
That's a good question. Well, the original, do you want to answer?
Either way.
Okay, well, the original script for Day of the Dead was very different than what was done. And the original script was not made because there wasn't funding for it. But it was a big a big kind of landscape of what he imagined, and he imagined, it's pretty sociologically, it was very interesting. He imagined that zombies became our workforce, as long as we fed them. But they worked in a situation where humans wouldn't have to. So he looked at it as like how we treat the third world, the immigrant class, that this is where we're happy, we can exploit them, we can live with it, and that's the price we pay, and that's, you know, they do that for us. And that would have been a pretty big social statement, and it's unfortunate that, I mean, the Day of the Dead is good, but it's unfortunate that the big film wasn't made.
Well, it kind of came true in reality.
Yeah. Well, I think George was prophetic in many ways. He saw this as happening, and it was, I mean, I worked on the script to cast it, and it was really interesting because the casting was incredible. When Dawn was being made, I mean, you know, agents looked at us like, what? Horror film? You know, we're not going to go see that film. And Day of the Dead, when we were casting it, every actor, every Broadway star came in to be auditioned. They all wanted to be a part of that script. And it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, originally, going off what Gaylen was saying, that time in New York, you know, casting directors and agents go, why are you doing that movie?
Yeah.
Because we were doing screenings to invite people, just to promote ourselves, you know. But that whole attitude has completely changed, completely.
Yeah, I was also going to say the other film that I think George would have liked, and it was very much like, and they did an homage to George in it, which was not a film, it was a series, is The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that? And that beautiful episode where the two girls go into the mall was an homage to George. It was so interesting that they couldn't find a mall to shoot it in. All the malls were like so decrepit and no stores were there. So they had to recreate virtually that mall. But that was definitely an homage to George in that.
I have a little tidbit. The whole thing with the Dawn remake, they named the store after your name.
Yeah, they did.
Gaylen.
Really?
Yeah, but they did that, didn't ask her, right?
Right, no. They did it, I declined to be in the film. I decided I didn't want to, but that was my choice. So they went ahead and named the store. I remember sitting there going, what? What is
Clothes or groceries?
At least it was a good store.
Pots and pans.
That would have been great. They should have done a kitchen. That would have been
That would have
great.
been a kitchen supply store. I'm just saying.
That would have been great.
They missed the boat on that.
They did. They certainly did. I have another little surprise, and that is George's daughter, Tina, has just shot her feature film that's going to be amazing. I did a little cameo for her in that, which was great, but it's cast with incredible actors, and it's drag queens and zombies, and it's going to Queen of the Dead.
What?
It's going to be incredible. I can't give away the secrets because she's doing some really, really cool things in the film that are very, very different. George would have loved it. The zombies are slow. It took her quite a few years to get this film made, and she did it.
Oh, how
She
exciting.
did. It is
She
exciting.
went to NYU film school,
She
right?
did, but it took her, she's been a DJ over the years and did
Right.
different things, and she's been writing this script, and they finally got the funding for it. It's a nice budget, and I think it's gonna be great fun.
So filming has completed on that?
But I think they're hoping that it will be open at Sundance. We'll see.
Oh, how exciting. So, Queen of the Dead.
Yeah. I think Queens of the Dead or Queen of the Dead. I can't remember exactly.
So
And she directed. It was funny, Scott. I was thinking of you. There was like, as she was on the set, there was a little bit of George. I told her, in her, you know, she would look at a take and then she'd sort of walk over, you know how George would like, and
Yeah.
not say like anything critical or negative.
Right.
So, you know, you know, and
Twist it like this.
yeah, and I said, Tina, that's exactly the way George did it. You know, she was very clever.
George was a man of few words.
Yeah, Tina too.
Yeah.
Sounds like you knew how to talk to people, too, and not make you feel bad.
Oh, yeah. Gina is Dawn is really, I don't think about it all the time, but it has had a big impact on my life because, not because of the movie or being a lead in the movie, blah, 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 is that I'm sorry.
But Tina, we're talking about, oh, yeah.
Yeah, Tina and my daughter became friends.
Aww.
And one other thing about George, because I think it's really, the other thing that, you know, besides working with actors, George was the way he also worked with his crew, which was incredible. I mean, I've never seen film crews that like, well, we'll work, you know, more on what do you want and what can we do for you. I mean, the generosity that George showed toward the crew and the respect was really phenomenal. I think, you know, it was his nature, and that's who he was.
For Scott. Scott, can you talk at all about your experience on Night Rider?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Anything in particular?
Yeah, no, that was such a strange movie. I mean, Camelot on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Well, it was so much fun to do. I got a little tidbit. It rained 70% of the time. And we had to stop shooting. And it was a little frustrating for George, of course. We were all staying at this Holiday Inn, and they had, this is a sideline thing, they had this huge bowl of shrimp every day, right? And all the crew and the cast was staying there, and would just eat this huge, eat it all up. Well, after 2 weeks of that, they stopped the shrimp. But it was fun, it was different, met Ed Harris there. He and I were both up for the lead role. He's such a nice guy. My personal opinion of the film is, I really liked the film. I don't think it was realized in terms of what George really wanted. That's what I think. I may be wrong about that, but I thought it was a really great concept. Well, we had all these delays constantly going on. But, you know, met some good people. He has his stable of crew people that he always uses, you know, and they're there. So they're like familiar faces. It's like kind of family, you know, and that's kind of cool. That's the great thing about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I have one.
Of course.
So
You
there's
asked a
one
question?
question.
Oh, there we go.
Well, I was just gonna say, so out of all of your performances, what would you say was your best performance?
Out of everything you've ever done?
Yeah, out there, everything. What are you most proud of? Are you most proud of Roger or Night Riders? I mean.
I'm more proud of Roger.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. But because also the arc.
Yeah.
Night Riders was fun, you know, Marhawk. What's your name? Marhawk. I don't know if you remember that.
I didn't. It just slipped my mind when I just asked it. So.
You know, I'm just joking, man.
Yeah.
Stop joking. Yeah, I know, definitely Roger. Because of the arc and the role, I mean, the experience of it, you know. But I have other roles I've done that I have other feelings about.
Do you ever get tired talking about it?
No, the weird thing, I don't. Maybe there's something wrong. So there's always new questions and new people, or you pick up things that you didn't think about that somebody in the audience says.
Hold on. Did you have, what are you most proud of in your catalog?
friend, of course, yeah.
And he has a question for you guys.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you can do this. Apart from the violence and the obvious violence in Dawn of the Dead, what to you really speaks to you? Why do you... I think I know the answer, but I'm curious what you say. What is it that lingers in you? That why the film has such a meaning to you? Anyway,
For me, it's always been a metaphor for social anxiety. Like every time I go to I go to a party and people are trying to talk to me, that really kind of pushes it to the nth degree. What I saw in Dawn of the Dead.
You got one?
Yeah, it just left such an impactful, like, a profound moment in my life that it, like, collecting and meeting you guys, like, it feels like I'm a part of the family.
Right.
It gives me a sense of belonging. Like, I have my friends here, like, we just, there's no one like us. And
that is so
we
good.
get the same.
I would say that's pretty true.
That speaks to the horror community in general,
Yeah.
right? That's why it's so great.
I'll kind of piggyback off of that. So like I'm from Atlanta, he's from Kentucky, he's from Indiana. We all met through George Romero.
Right.
We're going to Pittsburgh and meeting you guys. So we all get together. We're like a big family, you know.
Sweet.
Well, let's, back here, what do you guys think?
I'll take it in a different direction. I just kind of always enjoy those movies, especially as a kid, of being in a fun place overnight and hanging out, like career opportunities. And being in the mall overnight and just hanging out and having free range.
Until it's not fun anymore.
Right.
And we have one back there, and then we'll get to you.
Yeah. One of the things that I think Dawn of the Dead has maintained its hold on us is because, like so many things that Romero did, it was grounded, it felt real. There's nothing overly fantastic or explained away in the film. So for me, I was 7 when the movie came out, so that's what I grew up with, that's nostalgia for me. But for others, you can honestly see that kind of feeling of reality is there, and it doesn't require too many leaps, too many moments of like cognitive jumping that says, well, I'm not going to accept this. You really can kind of get through those suspensions of disbelief and have a meaningful experience with it, regardless of how you come to it.
That's really.
And the fact that he tried to add the humor to it, because in daily life we try to think of the humor in things as well.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that also makes you relate more to the movie.
Yeah, life's horrific.
And I think,
Yes. We got one here too, and then we'll get you.
Yeah, it's similar to what he was saying. Like that's what comes back to me. I saw it when I was, I think, 12 years old at a midnight movie, and it was almost like a roller coaster ride. It was fun as a kid. Like you get locked in a mall, everything's yours. You get to shoot zombie. It was just a fun ride. And then now that you get older, all the social context resonates. It's so obvious. We're walking around like zombies with our cell phones. People are getting hit by cars because they're not looking when they're crossing the street. It's just all of that kind of plays out. But that's what brings me back. And there's the dialogue is just so great. Just the line you said about the pots and pan. I mean, there's so many like kind of one-liners and funny things. It's just a fun ride. And I'm now 56 years old, and I can watch it, and I go right back to when I'm 12 years old, and it's that fun again. It's just still that fun,
I think it was fantastic just when he started the Night of the Living Dead, and it was just everyday people and showed just a variety of people. And so I always liked that. And the mall was such a unique idea in your movie. I'd never seen anything like it, and really stuck out to me because I love to go to the mall. And so that was really fun, and one that stands out to me because of where the location was.
Everyday people and how they handle a crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What they do.
The realism too, I was thinking, when the pandemic first hit, I mean, all I could think of was that newsroom. Where people saying no, and the doctor saying yes, and then that was like, it resonated, right?
Yeah.
It was weird.
Do we have some over here? No?
Anyone else want to contribute to that? What's it mean to you?
Well, I just want to kind of so to me, Dawn of the Dead is a comfort film for me. It's like a warm blanket that just, like, I can watch that movie I can put it on and I make it 5 minutes and it puts me right to sleep. It's like, oh, no. I'm not lying. I mean, I'm not lying.
No, I
because
hear you.
I've
It's
seen
good.
the movie
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of times. I know it by heart. Like, it's just, it's a blanket. It's a comfort blanket.
You want to hear some synchronicity talking about what Gaylen was saying a moment ago? When we were making the film, Newsweek magazine came out with a cover story, and it was on the cover of the magazine, called "The Mauling of America."
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yep. It was right while we were shooting. And I saw that and I went, oh God, this is like prophetic. And it was like about how we were going to be mauled by the moles. What'd you say?
Amazon
Yeah.
We just go on and we just do this.
You don't even have to put pants on anymore. It's great. Anyone else want to contribute to that? Yeah.
One last thing, when it goes back to the original question that you put to us, and I talked to you at your table about this, I'm gonna say love. Because one of the reasons why him and I fell in love 30 some odd years ago was over our love of horror.
Wow.
And horror movies, and still to this day, all these years later, there are multiple times in the year when I look at him on a Tuesday night or a Friday night and go, you know what, we have not watched Dawn in a while. I'm making dinner and we're watching Dawn, and it's one of those things that I don't care. Like I said, we were in our teens when we met, we're in our 50s now, and God willing, when we're in our 80s, I want to sit and go, hey, you know what, it's that date night, let's watch Dawn.
That's great. Well, that would make George very happy.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to end this. What about you? Everyone give it up.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Veronica Cartwright.
Oh, right. Thank you. Great job.
Yeah. Oh.
2:30.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get it.
Okay. I'm gonna do a lap. Want to join? Okay. I'm walking in the back.
Okay, I'll leave my bag with you. You're welcome. So